Hello, everyone. Happy 2023 for us. For you all, I believe it's February already, so happy almost Valentine's Day.
Time is a weird soup.
Yeah, time. Oh, great. Is that from Critical Role?
It is.
That's okay.
That's a fernism.
That's a fernism.
Okay. There's lots of great fernisms.
Oh, life is indeed quite a soup, I would say. What would you say this season of life for you, Kurtis? What would you say is your the flavor of soup?
This season of my life is probably there's so many soups, Jake.
There's a lot of soups out there. And usually soups are seasonal.
It's probably a good pho.
Yes. I think that's great. We got to be careful now with YouTube and swearing. So just a good pho.
It's different. Yep. A good pho.
Good pho.
Yep.
I think mine is a good chicken noodle right now.
I was going to say Italian wedding because you know you're
with the little meatballs.
because you're still in the honeymoon stage.
No, that's fair. Okay. Italian wedding. I'm changing my answer.
Change your answer.
Oh, it is so good to be back. For us, this is the first time meeting after the holidays. So this is wonderful. I get a chance to talk to my good friend Kurtis over here. If you don't know, we are the Backyard Tabletop. My name is Jacob.
My name's Kurtis. He said it already.
We like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons on this podcast. We like to talk about the old role-playing game where you sit around and roll dice and play imagination with each other. It's great. Mm-hmm. And something that was unique that happened over the holidays. So as Kurtis actually already spoiled, I am still in the honeymoon phase because we were playing Curse of Strahd last year. I believe we were actually talking about this. We didn't know if it was February or March, but I believe March was the last time in 2022 that we played Curse of Strahd. And over the holidays, we got to get the old gang back together and sit around the table, and Kurtis ran us through a little bit more of that game. We got to catch back up, and it was so cool. So one is so we do talk about our Friday and Saturday games weekly here, and that one is online. So there is just something that's really cool. And it was especially cool around the holidays to just all get together and sit around the table, roll physical dice, and just the experience of being all in the same room. It was awesome. Kurtis worked really hard.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine what the DM had to go through. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you had to go through to catch everyone up?
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory. I think we've talked briefly about, my running Curse of Strahd and stuff on the podcast before. But I started it a long time back because just reading through a lot of the adventures and stuff, Curse of Strahd is really one of my favorites under the, the D&D umbrella. Official umbrella. It's just so good. I don't know. It's so hard to put it into words exactly why it's so good. It's just really well written. The characters are really well written. It's classic. Everybody loves it. It's dark. It's dingy. It's scary. It's hard. Mm-hmm. It's very fun.
Well, and you also kind of going back to those early days where we were just barely starting D&D, it was also the first campaign that you really experienced media-wise, right? Because that was when people were just starting to stream D&D, and that was one of the first ones I remember you watching. So I feel like that also has a play in it as well. It's just nostalgia for you.
It was kind of what got me into D&D, because the first thing I ever actually watched of an actual play of D&D was Chris Perkins and the Waffle Crew playing through Curse of Strahd, which was, that's been forever ago now that campaign was streaming.
That's dating our D&D selves right there.
Yeah. Man, it was good. It was real fun. The characters were great. The audio's a little rough to get through because they're all it wasn't even Zoom. It was probably Skype then.
And I feel like that's like at this point in life, it's like that's always anytime I go to recommend someone to like, hey, you should check out this live stream of D&D. Typically, it's like, hey, those just so you know, those first 20 episodes are a little rough in the audio. I feel like that's just a what do they call it? Like a brand of introduction. Every stream has to go through that.
And also a lot of the like, I'll say like normal actual play D&D games now are all online. You know, everybody's calling in from all over the country or world and doing it that way. So that's almost like the norm now.
Yeah.
Whereas, back then the norm for me was podcasting. Like podcast actual play games. So you're just listening and trying to imagine it in your head, but the audio is wonderful.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got good mics and it's a podcast and everything's great. That's what I was used to at the time, because at the time I was kind of listening to that, but I was also listening to the Adventure Zone. Which is now a super famous podcast, but at the time it was like just coming out almost.
That it was like an experiment in those days, I remember.
Campaign 1 was like maybe halfway done by the time I started watching it.
Okay. Man, that's also another callback. Adventure Zone's a great one. Yeah.
All that to say, it was like my first experience of recognizing Dungeons and Dragons and how it's played. So it was the first real big campaign that I knew I wanted to run like straight out of the book. I had done the Lost Mines of Phandelver at this point. I had DM'd that,
which is where in that Lost Mines of Phandelver, I do believe was when my wife developed a crush on me. So yeah, I really should thank you for that.
Well, at least it got heavier then. And that was so much fun. That Lost Mines of Phandelver. I actually want to run that campaign again because it's nice and little and fun and just classic fantasy.
One of these days, I think we should sit down and have our own interpretations of how we would do Lost Mine of Phandelver, just for fun, because of how popular that is.
And then we did Dragon of Icespire Peak.
Mm-hmm.
That was my second one I ran, and what I did with that was Dragon of Icespire Peak actually has 3 sequel campaigns. So there's Dragon of Icespire Peak, which is like the main one. It takes you to like from level 1 to 5, I think, or level 1 to 4.
Yes, yeah, 1 to 5. I believe you're supposed to be 5 when you're going to go fight the dragon.
And then there's 3 more after that are all still in the same storyline, are all connected, but they're not in the book. They're only digital. And I started running us through all of those too, but we never finished those. And then what I decided I wanted to do next was I wanted to play something at the table, just at the table. Yeah. Not worry about being online, not worrying about any of that stuff. I just wanted a group of friends that were close to us that we could play at the table once a week or once every other week. And I decided, okay, this is it. I'm going to do Curse of Strahd. That's what I want to do for this, because I want it to be good. I want it to be at the table. I want it to be enjoyable for anybody. I want to set a mood for it, which is so much easier to do like at the table when you can have like settings and stuff. And
so much easier for your music too, which
yes,
Kurtis's music for Curse of Strahd is just on point.
And sound effects, it's really good to put music and like a setting sound.
Yeah.
But it just so happened it was the perfect time when the Curse of Strahd like special edition was coming out. It was like the reprint that came in like the little coffin box.
Mm-hmm.
And to celebrate that being reprinted, a little company called Beetle and Grimm's, which I'm sure a lot of D&D people know about, but Beetle and Grimm's is this like secondary company that works very closely with Dungeons and Dragons, and they release like really special editions of the adventures. Mm-hmm. So when you get one of their boxes for Curse of Strahd, it's not just the book and a couple little things and a, dungeon screen or set of dice or whatever most of the campaigns come with now. Instead, what it is it's a huge box with physical handouts, meaning letters are printed and put on parchment as if they
All the
are
handouts.
straight up written up, and you can fold them up and put them in a envelope that has like a wax seal on it. All of the handouts are like that. They're physical. You can physically hand them to your characters.
Very immersive. Yep.
There are physical artifacts. So Curse of Strahd, this version of Curse of Strahd came with a physical medallion that is the actual like life-size version of the symbol of Ravenkind.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty heavy too.
It's hefty. It's like real
It's
cast
like
metal.
you kind of pick it up and you're like, wow, that could kill a man. Like,
Yeah. And it also splits up the book into its chapters. So there's like 4 chapters per booklet. So that as you're flipping through the books, you don't need to keep the whole huge book on your table. You can just have the booklet for the area you're in. And it's way easier to manage, way easier to find your setting and where you're supposed to be. Also, it came with a ton of full-size printed on parchment maps.
the maps are super cool.
For like actual battle maps. So they printed out like 4 of the main areas that you'll want. So they did like the Death House and the windmill and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
They also, their goal for this was to print out a complete full-size version of a map of Strahd's castle, which you guys haven't even seen any of yet. It's huge.
We have not seen the
Dude, if
the
you
Strahd's
lay
castle.
this thing out, if I tried to lay this thing out where all the parchment was like piece to piece for the full castle, it would take my whole house. Like,
Oh my
so
gosh.
many maps.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's got to be at least 20 pages of like, how big are those? Like 4.5 by 3 foot parchment.
Oh,
Like
nice.
20 pages of that's double-sided for the whole castle. The whole castle is mapped out.
Oh,
Every
that's
level.
so cool. Oh my. Okay, so well, now I can't wait to get to that dungeon. That's gonna
and it
be.
comes with like a real Taraka deck and everything too. It's
That's
really
cool. Yeah, that was really cool because even that scene, I don't know if you all know Curse of Strahd, but that there is a moment where you get your fortune told, essentially, and Kurtis was actually role-playing the person that was doing that and actually had the cards and was laying them out, and that's kind of like the really cool like randomized part of Curse of Strahd.
I let you guys pull them.
Yeah, we were pulling them, and so we could literally run Strahd again and go to that moment, and it's like a cool little randomized thing. So it is, and just from a player's perspective, really immersive. Kurtis had like his setup. I might have a few pictures I might put up just to show the setup, because your dungeon master screen with like the bottle of wine that's there and like the wax that's on it, like
They also add a few like extra things. They added like wine is a real big thing in Curse of Strahd, and so they put
he's a vampire.
wine labels that you can peel and stick onto a real wine bottle so that it looks like you've got wine from the world just like sitting there. I got a custom made like black wood, like charred wood dungeon master screen that like fits the setting perfectly.
Very cool. And then even candles, right? Weren't there candles that came with it?
I got candles from both Cantrip candles and Lorelight candles, I think, are the two. I might be getting those wrong. But I got those because they have ones that are like specific to, they try to evoke certain things. So there's one that smells like an old library and one that smells like a dark, dank forest and like all these kinds of things. So I got some of those. There's a guy named Travis Savoy who made a full album of like Curse of Strahd inspired music, basically a soundtrack to the Curse of Strahd setting. So I gathered all this stuff up and was like so proud. I'm like, we're going to do this. As soon as I get that box in, I'm going to study it, make sure I know everything, and then we're starting. And it was so much fun. We played for a really long time, almost a year. We did.
Probably, I believe it was almost a year before we had to take a break because I needed to go get married and change the flavor of soup in my life into a new season. It's a little bit of
changed it from ramen to Italian wedding.
We've taken a break, but we got to get back together over the holidays. What was it like?
Town, so.
Yeah, it's like we came back for the holidays to see family. It was great, and it was great to just see the D&D crew again. I think that was just really that just made us feel at home for sure. It was just like, oh yes, it's great. What was it like? Because the fun thing was like Curtis was kind of prepping this for like a few months or a couple months before we actually did the trip. So he was like texting everyone like, "Can I get your notes? Where were we left?" And when we actually sat down on over the holidays, it was like probably a good 20-minute long intro because you basically took us from the start to where we had left off, and we had left off kind of not really on a cliffhanger, but it was like right before some combat. So it was a little bit like, getting us back into that feel. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that was?
Yeah, it was kind of, well, I mean, I feel like, well, so I'm really weird.
Yes, we all are.
I'll preface this with that.
Okay.
I hardly ever take notes as a human being. Whether I'm studying or playing a character, as a human being, I hardly ever take notes. So as a character, whether I'm studying or even as a dungeon master, which a lot of people are gonna say like, "Wow, you're just a bad dungeon master." It's like, no, I have a pretty good memory, so I don't really. I've never felt the need to take notes before, and then I was kicking myself because I was like, well, I've taken such a long break that there are actually a lot of things I just can't remember. Which is why I asked for all of the characters' notebooks, because I was like, one of them had to have note of this one thing. One of them had to have. I mean, you all take notes very differently and about different things, but I was like, the thing that it did was it refreshed my memory, which was all I really needed. I didn't need like detailed. The only thing I needed really detailed was remembering exactly which cards you guys picked so that I could remember the parts that I was supposed to remember about that. But for the most part, a lot of it didn't matter super much, other than just kind of remembering where everyone is, not just characters, like in the world. Like what effect you guys have had on the world, because that's the thing I can't go back in the book and find out, right? I can't go back and go, oh, right, this person's here, because actually they're not there anymore. They're dead because of something you guys did, right? Like, so, like, what I had to remember was the effect you guys had on the world up until this point.
Well, and especially things in the book that, like, the book doesn't specify how they tell you a little bit about Strahd, but like specifically in our game, one of our characters had died, and we made basically a deal with Strahd in order to try and get our friend back. So like, obviously that wasn't in the book, so there's something you had to be refreshed on.
And another thing is, I wouldn't say I heavily adjust the game. I still follow the same major tenets and the feel of it. But I do add a lot of homebrew flavor from a lot of different sources. People on Reddit, people on Patreon, people that have written basically full-on guides for Curse of Strahd and have made suggestions for ways to slightly change it so that it kind of fits the overall story better, helps the writing a little bit, keeps people entertained, all those kinds of things. So I implement a lot of those things too. So a lot of that is where I'm like, I don't remember exactly if I did it the way in the book or if I did it a different way. But thankfully I have downloads of almost all of the stuff I've used. So I was able to go back and check all of that too.
Which I think would be really fun, maybe just a little teaser for future reference, once we're actually finished with Strahd, because I know there's probably a lot that you have in mind that you don't necessarily want to tell me, who's a player in the game.
Yeah.
But I think once we finish it, that might be something that we do, is like sit down and be like, okay, what did you keep in the book? What did you change? Why did you change it? And then and then I could, from a character's perspective, like the latest one being an example of that, with the girl being different. So, I think that would be fun. When I feel like we'll wait till it's all said and done, tied up in a nice little Strahd blood-soaked ribbon, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and you guys, realistically, at this point, you guys are kind of in the final third.
Yeah, we're
You've
getting
gone
close.
most of the way through all of the artifacts you're trying to get and all of these kinds of things. You've probably got maybe 3 more dungeon-style encounter areas before you're pretty much ready to do whatever you want to do. So
At this point, we have kind of, we're set. Strahd is very much our enemy at this point, and we're kind of like, well, okay, here we go. It's time to start.
War has been declared at this point. There's no more will they, won't they, or he's teasing you or messing with you anymore. He's not a cat playing with his food anymore.
Yeah.
He's hungry now.
Yeah.
So he's ready to go.
He's his vampire self. So we are going to be moving hopefully that game online, and we'll be hopefully finishing that up. And
So that's the thing, is like now I've got to figure out how to kind of transition into an online space, which won't be bad. I've run plenty of games online before. But also, the crazy thing about like coming back to it after so long, one of the harder things was actually just kind of like not corralling, but like rallying the players. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like getting everyone there on board and back into these characters that they haven't played for almost a year. That's kind of tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were things that were in the game that I was like, oh, I'm going to reference this, and it should be something that kind of tugs at this person, but I'm not sure if it will. I don't know if they really remember that that's something they should be worried about or not.
Yeah.
All of this kind of stuff. Like I did something with the abbot, where they were a servant of the deity that our cleric is a servant of.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like, I don't know if they're going to really care that much about that because it's been a while, but that Sarah did a great job. She totally did. Everything went great.
It was literally that moment where it was the cat watching the tennis and just or watching ping pong, it was like me and Steve, one of the players, we were just sitting there. We were just looking at Kurtis and then looking at Sarah and then looking at Kurtis and then looking.
Well,
it was just like
it also helped that we were both at the ends of the table. So she was at the foot, I was at the head, and we were just like oh, dude, that was so hard for me because I am terrible at eye contact. And I was trying so hard to be this creepy abbot dude. So I was just keeping such dead eye contact. And it was like, inside of me was like, like nails on a chalkboard.
Oh,
it was
no.
so terrible. But it was great.
Oh,
it was a lot of fun.
It was very entertaining. It truly was one of those moments where I wish I'd recorded, but I was just too immersed in the scene. Just because it was a great reveal. I think we definitely will talk about that because
we're gonna hit all the beats eventually.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that eventually, folks, here on the Backyard Tabletop.
To kind of summarize and close out, I think, if you're in one of those groups that's like, we haven't played in a while, I'm not sure if people are still interested in this game, this campaign, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If anyone at that table wasn't interested in being there, we wouldn't have come back.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the gist of it, was like the fact that we even did come back and play at all speaks pretty heavily to the fact that everyone there wanted to be there and is still invested in that story.
Yeah.
So as long as that's the case, as long as you're all actually sitting back down to play again, you're good. Because everyone's invested. Everyone wants to be there. Just let it happen, and figure it out. But, it's not impossible. A lot of people are like, oh man, we haven't played in like a year. There's no way they're going to get back into this game. It's like, no, see if they're interested.
That's a great way to close that out, because that really is true. Sometimes we do get kind of in that rut, we haven't met in a long time, because it's just a meme at this point, right? Scheduling is actually the real BBEG of any D&D campaign or tabletop game, and it was really cool to kind of just immediately kind of get back in it, because just when you have that atmosphere, and I think it does really help to be in the room, I think that really helped with it. But I think you're right. Everyone was just happy to be there, really excited. The holidays, running from a vampire, it's great. Because I mean, because we've started campaigns and haven't finished, and I know one day, I keep telling you one day, don't delete that character, because we're going to get back to that campaign one day. But I know Strahd was something that you invested a lot into as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, as a DM, when you've invested so much in this game, like, not even just mentally, like financially too, realistically. Like, if you're being realistic about it, I spent a lot of money on that box and all of the things that I've bought for this campaign. Like, I want to get back to it, Like, I don't want it to just be sitting over there in the corner picking up dust because I'm never going to play it again,
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a very real thing. And like, yeah, we could start it over, but we should just play it again.
We're just going to play it again. I mean, and I don't know about you, but we came back at level 8 characters, and that did feel really good.
Yeah.
My character that I have built is a level 5 ranger, and at this point level 3 rogue, and he's quite a beast. That is a fun build. It's just it is quite damage heavy, and it feels good, especially coming from Dara, who is a bard, dude, who is all about, that was actually something talking about with Sarah, because in our weekly Saturday game, she's a fighter who's, doing damage and stuff, and then she transitioned to a cleric, and she was like, oh, I'm feeling like I'm not doing much because all I'm doing is buffing the party. And I was like, I had the exact opposite, where I'm used to buffing the party and kind of encouraging them, and then I went to being all about damage. So it is interesting how that whole thing. So yeah, it was fun getting back to it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of our weekly games, how is yours going, Kurtis?
Wow, it's.
I feel like you're doing a. I feel like you're doing a lot of talking. So I'm just gonna. I've got my Red Bull. I'll let you take a drink of Red Bull, and I'm just gonna. Hey everyone, thank you so much for making it this far into the video. It really does mean a lot to me. It means a lot to Kurtis over here. That you are listening and enjoying. Let us know down in the comments any ideas that you have, maybe for future questions.
Don't worry, because I'm just doing vocal warm-ups. Sorry, don't.
Oh yeah, no, take your time. Let us know if there's anything that. Let us know any questions that you would like to. Wow, that's really hard to stay focused. That was really good. If you have any questions that you would like us to talk about for the first part of this podcast, let us know down in the comments. Today we talked about Curse of Strahd stuff, but typically we start these campaigns with a fun question. So,
Jacob is a jerk.
But let us know down in the comments.
Jacob is a jerk. Jacob jerk.
Sorry, no, it's just the warm-ups.
Jacob
okay.
jerk.
Yeah.
Jacob jerk.
All right, we're good.
Yep, we good?
Yep.
That kind of sounded like you were directing at me. Are you sure you're okay? Do we need to?
That's just the warm-up, man. It's a really common warm-up. Yeah, it's the J's. It's really helpful for the. Mm-hmm.
In between the A and the S, I believe. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, we have weekly games. I have mine on Saturdays. Curtis has his on Fridays.
Friday night.
When last we left off on Curtis's game,
Please tell me.
they were working for the Queen.
Yeah.
Man, okay, so it's been a while. You guys were
Yep.
working for the Queen, and you had to go. A captain of the guard, I believe, had defected, from what you guys understood.
Yes.
It was captain of the guard, and so you had to go find him, and they
Not-
had
he was like a captain of a regiment, not like of the whole guard.
Okay, so he a military, a somewhat high-ranking official, had
Yeah.
Defected. Does the guard have a name here in the Korvosa?
Sure does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dip is going to be so happy that you remember it when you say it.
Yeah,
right.
I absolutely remember it, and it definitely has a name. Mm-hmm.
It's great. So you all had gone to find him. He was working at a meat shop, or he was.
Yes.
There was a bunch of mercenary people that were here that were like helping the town, supposedly helping the town by beating people up and running them out of town that were bad people. They were located in this meat shop. You guys went there, and a fight broke out, but you didn't necessarily kill anyone until Squish, the bard, shot someone with a crossbow because he needed to try and get this guy's attention to surrender, but he wouldn't have it. But finally you guys did convince him. I believe it was like 3 checks or something like that. Learning that he had no idea that they were actually running people out of town. He thought they were just helping people by giving out meat to people. But also on top of that, it was kind of a dark twist where you guys found out these people, they were actually not necessarily all of them being killed, some of them being killed, or was it all of them?
As far as we know, not all of them, but a lot of the people they were running out of town, people they were getting rid of, they were just killing, and then they would get rid of the bodies by butchering a bunch of the meat, and then anything left over they would dump into the slop for the pigs.
It was just a dark twist there. Just a big oof, I would say.
Yep. Yep. And the captain dude had no idea any of that was taking place.
He should have been
Just
left
doing
in
the
dark.
right thing.
Yeah. It was one of those moments. But you convinced him to go back to the guard.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went back to report in. And now you all have, you were rewarded for that. And now you all have special badges.
Badges?
Badges? We don't need no stinking badges. Every D&D player.
Yeah.
Now that you've done that, you guys have badges that basically say that you're working for the kingdom. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily not on a payroll by any means, but we are trusted helpers. Yes, we could flash that badge to a random guard, and say like we can help you, and they'll be like, okay, all right then, you can help.
Great.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah,
That's so cool. And then you all basically had some role play sessions where you went to the bar. Unfortunately, Cal did not roll too good.
Struck out.
But maybe he left an impression.
He hasn't seen her again yet.
Flying on that griffin that he did. Can you imagine? You were like flying
dude.
away, and just like in the second floor, the girl is just like, oh. Man.
Well, but the thing is, it's not that she wasn't interested. It's that as midst flirting, I blacked out
true.
and eventually passed out. And so she was like, oh, well, bummer. And then just left.
And then she just sees you flying on the griffin the next morning. Yeah.
Just barfing off the side of the griffin.
From what I remember, that's where we left off. You guys had basically were on a little bit of an up momentum, high moment, starting to get the feel for the party. What's going on in the neck of the city?
So we've had a few sessions, 2 or 3 sessions since then. I think 2. So essentially, we had a little bit more role play after that. Basically, some downtime in the city, which is a really common thing in this particular campaign. This particular story, because it's like, we just kind of live in this city and we're just kind of doing our best to help it, but we're not like adventurers necessarily.
Okay.
It's not like we're out there every day looking for fights, trying to fix stuff. It's like, no, we just live here, so we're trying to do our best to help. So for this downtime, a lot of times Dip's like, okay, you guys are going to have 5 days. What do you do in your daily life for those 5 days? And it's like, okay,
Gotcha.
well, do you just go through the minutia of all you normally do? Do you go out to the market, grab some food for the few days, come back, hang out, eat, work on your spell book, and then that's like it? Or are there any specific things you want to do during those 5 days is basically how it goes.
Okay. Okay, so there are like actually scripted good downtime moments. Okay.
Yeah, and so
Cool.
basically any time in those times we can say, well, actually what I wanted to do today was go shopping for this specific thing. Or we could say like Kitty, who is the other wizard, who's my character's sister. What she does a lot of the time is like work on potions and stuff. And then our bard obviously is doing his like route through the city, trying to go to places that are still open and play for them, and kind of route. And he's kind of taken it on himself at this point to almost like route the guardsmen. Basically, he's trying to like encourage them and play for them and invite them to the taverns and make sure that they're not like all out here getting super depressed because the city hates them. The city they love and are trying to protect hates them, that kind of a thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we've all kind of taken to our little things that we do throughout the week. For Cal, a lot of it's like studying his spell book. He goes to this particular tavern like almost every evening to like hang out with one Squish, who is the like bard there, and then just like get
I know we were
drinks
joking about it, but did he see the girl again?
No, because we haven't gone back to that bar yet. Well, we have, but I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's in a different part of town.
It's close to Valentine's Day, Curtis.
We'll get there.
Okay, good.
that one's in a different part of town, so he doesn't get there very often. Really, we only go there like as a group, because once we finish talking to the guardsmen, this is like the nearest bar, so that's where we go right after we've like turned in our stuff.
Okay.
So, what Cal tends to do is he, goes to that bar. He'll walk around the place. He'll go to his market, but just to like window shop. He just enjoys being in the city. And lately what he's been doing is like just kind of listening for rumors around town, hearing where the city's at, just keeping a tab on things about like what potential problems are coming up, how the city's feeling about certain leaders and the guardsmen and stuff like that. That's kind of been his thing. He's trying to he's the guy with the big pegboard in his room with all the lines to it. He's trying to figure out what's going on here and trying to keep tabs on everything.
And here's a question. So I remember in your backstory that Cal he was, I believe, trying to become a city guard before, correct? And he just didn't quite make it?
What he was actually trying to become was what's called the... Dip's actually going to get mad at me if I don't remember this.
Oh, no. I can edit it. You could run and look at your notes, and you can come back if you need. Because heaven forbid we make Dip mad. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
He's just going to rain down
Dip's one of the few
fire and
DMs
brimstone.
I know that's actually done negative inspiration. No, I'm just kidding. At any moment, if you disappoint him, he can ask for you to make any roll at disadvantage.
I will say
no, I'm just
the
kidding.
fun thing about Dip, though, on the positive side, he is that DM where if you remember something or tie something in with the world, like something about the lore or like certain phrases, in the Pathfinder universe, he will give you inspiration because it makes him very happy when you remember. He gets the big sad when you don't remember.
The Sable Company. That's what it's called.
Nice.
So it's not the main guardsman. It's the Sable Company, and the Sable Company's almost like they kind of report directly to the housecarl for like the castle, basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
And they're the ones who ride the griffins. They're like the special forces of the city. Mm-hmm. They patrol the city on griffins and like do all this other stuff. So that's what he was trying to do. He tried to go and get into that academy. And
so do you think Cal is going to still try and go for that, or is that kind of in the past? That's what I tried to do. I'm sticking with this group, and I want to make my own imprint or become my own person or something. Because like you said, you guys aren't really adventurers. So is there a definition of what you guys are doing?
I think so. To not get too in the weeds or to reveal too much, I think at this point Cal is he's given up on that. He had a slight reawakening of that desire because, like I said, the guy who ran the bar was part of Sable Company,
right?
And he's the one who gave him the ride on the Griffin. And when he found out that Cal was like, when I got here, that was my dream. I wanted to ride the Griffins and be in Sable Company. He was like really encouraging, and he was like, well, don't give up on it, you could still make it, and here, I'll let you want to ride on my Griffin, was like what he was like. And so he was like not
Very
necessarily like an
wholesome,
army recruiter, but just the kind of guy who's like, when he finds out that you've got that desire, he's like, go for it, dude, don't freak out about it. But but I don't think it's really reached him. I think he's much more interested in magic at this point. If anything, he would try and probably get involved at the Academy, which is like the magic school in Korvosa.
Since he kind of has this almost awakening with magic now that he's now he's figuring it out and things like that.
Now that he is actually applying himself to it, he's found out that he's actually pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And pretty naturally talented with it. Because, he's smart. He's got a good memory. He's good at these things. So he actually is pretty good at it.
It was one of those things where he was probably just the young fellow, and he was like, no, I want a sword. And then he was like, oh, wait, no, I can shoot fire from my hands. And then I'm going to try that. And it's like, oh, that was easier than I expected.
And the other thing was his sister had already started it way before him.
Yeah.
Because she's older, so she was starting her journey towards being a wizard way before he was. And so he was like, I'm not going to do that. That's what she's doing. Like, I'm going to be better than that. I'm going to go, ride a griffin and have a sword and all these kinds of things. That'll show her.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then when he was out for a long time, she was still there practicing, and he was like, I'm here. Can I try too? And so she started like showing him all the stuff, and now he's kind of gotten into it just himself.
That's cool. Sorry to derail there, but I was just curious if that's something that was on your docket.
I think the main reason is he's not naturally physically gifted. Like, he's tall, but he's lanky.
And good looking.
He's good looking and he's tall, but he's not like great at building muscle. He's not quick on his feet. So he's,
he has the physique to be a sportsman without any of the talent.
Correct.
For that. Like, he is the person on the sidelines that, like, I know the strategy of basketball, but I never really figured out how to dribble type of thing.
There's a disconnect almost between his brain and his muscles, right? He's not coordinated. He's not good at that. He can see it all in his brain, but actually making himself do it is not easy.
I like it.
So instead, why not just do thing that goes straight from your brain out your fingertips?
I just got to do this, and this, and then,
Yeah, so I think that's his thing. And he likes the power it gives him, and he likes that he's more naturally talented towards it. And, I think he's much more interested in that now that he knows he can go far with it.
Well, that's cool.
But in any case, so he's kind of given up on the Sable Company and stuff. Now his goal is to just be just help the city in the way that now he knows he can and be good at it. And most of that way is just using his brain and seeing where things are and helping figure things out. So now we've had that downtime. We get called back in to the guards. They have another job for us. So the guardsman lady basically says, there's this guy who is from Cheliax, which is where the queen is originally from. And it's another country that were the original founders of Korvosa. So there's like roots to Cheliax from in Korvosa, but for the most part, Korvosa sees themselves as very separate from Cheliax. And the people in Cheliax view Korvosa as basically like the redheaded stepchild. Like, it's filthy there. They're all mixing with all those other cultures and people, and it's dumb and terrible, and the city's awful. And pretty much everyone now thinks the queen feels that way, which is why nobody likes the queen right now, because they're all like, she's Chelish by blood, you know. She probably hates all of us. She thinks we're all dirty pigs and all that kind of stuff. We don't know if any of that's necessarily true yet. We have no reason to believe it is true that she
You're not
hates
necessarily
the city.
best buds with the queen yet.
No. And what we have seen of her, she seemed genuinely saddened at the king's passing and worried about the city.
Now,
from what we all saw at our low-level insight checks. But
now, is Cal in the back of his head like putting the strings together in his room on how to become king of
I don't know. No, but so basically there's this guy who's an ambassador from Cheliax, right?
Okay.
He's in the city. He's an ambassador to Cheliax, and he's basically bad talking the town and almost intentionally causing more problems. Because he basically is like, great, let's get this town back under Chelish control. That sounds wonderful to me.
Okay.
That kind of a thing. So what this guardswoman decides is we need dirt on him. We need some way to shut him up. And so what she decides is we know that he goes to this dark, seedy place called Eel's End pretty often. We want you to go there and talk to the guy who runs Eel's End, and we want you to get dirt on this ambassador.
Get a little blackmail.
Yeah, find out what he's doing there. Find out if there's any way that you can get dirt on him or anything like that. That way we can have that in our pocket and basically tell him, hey, shut up or everyone finds out about this.
Gotcha. Ooh, that's a cool mission.
So we go to this place, Eel's End, and Cal is very familiar with it. He's been there plenty of times.
Is that his local place? That's his main place?
No.
Or?
No. That was his main place. In his past.
A little backstory.
But he hasn't been there in months.
Since his sister came back in, correct?
Yes. So it was a bit of like a homecoming for him almost, but like not in a good way.
The homecoming to the high school that just bullied you from day
going
one
to the high school reunion
day.
when you hated high school. Yeah, basically that.
Oh God.
But not necessarily that when you hated high school, more like when you feel like you've grown in it as a person since high school, but you don't want to go back because you feel like you're just going to turn into yourself from high school again.
You
know that feeling?
That's
Anyway, so we all go there, and Eel's End is basically, it's a dock with 5 ships moored to it, and they're all tied together, permanently moored there. And they all have game planks kind of connecting them, and each ship is its own vice, let's say.
Okay.
One of them is essentially just a boarding house that you can go sleep off whatever you do in any of the other places.
Okay.
One of them is a brothel. One of them is a basically drug den.
Okay.
And another is like a casino / bar kind of place.
Okay.
And then the fifth one is the leader's ship. And it's like where he stays and
That's interesting that
watches
it's
over
like
everything.
like it's a bunch of ships. That's kind of a cool
Yeah,
image.
so it's like it's a pier, and then there's like a ship, and then a ship and a ship, and then there's like his ship at the front, and they're all like tied together with like gangplanks leading to all of them.
a
So
fleet of vice. I like it.
yeah, so yeah, basically think of it like a legitimate boardwalk where like, you can go between all the different places.
Oh, that's interesting. Gotcha.
So we go straight up to his ship and manage to convince the guards to give us audience because we've got money to pay for it, and that we have like a business proposal, essentially. So we go in and talk to this guy, and he's known as like the Lord of Spiders, essentially. And he seems just human, but for some reason he's got this innate thing with like spiders. He sees them as like his pets. So we walk into his cabin and there's like spider webs covering everything, and he's just got like spiders crawling on him and stuff. Real
geez.
creepy.
Just a little bit of a callback to the creepy spiders that they killed everyone.
Exactly, yeah. So we talk to him and basically say we need dirt on this guy. We've got 500 gold because that's what the guard gave us to work with. First we said 300, and then we were like, actually, since you don't like that, we've got 500. And he was like, how about this? 500 gold, and also you guys have to beat some of my men at Knivesies. Let me say that again. Beat them at Knivesies.
Knivesies?
Yes. Knivesies is apparently a really popular game at Dark Toe. Or not Dark Toe, that's... Oh my god.
That's Critical Role.
Critical Role. Not Dark Toe. The place that's basically Dark Toe in Pathfinder.
No, I get you. Oh, that's
Wow.
You've been watching a lot of Critical Role lately, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been trying to
Little
catch back up.
Okatoa, reunited.
Something docks. It's this game that dock place is basically known for having like scum and villainy and pirates and stuff.
Right. The most wretched hive of scum and villainy.
and this guy loves Knivesies, so he's like, yeah, we could just negotiate with money, but that's boring. Play some Knivesies. And so the way it works, Knivesies is a game where you set up a big, heavy wooden table in the middle of the room, and then you stab a knife right into the middle of it. Okay?
Okay.
And then you have two people, one on each end of the table. They stand on top of the table, one on each end. Everybody decides who they're going to bet on and how much. They then take that money and everybody piles it around the knife in the middle of the table. And then you go stand by the person who you bet for. Okay, you stand on the end of the person you bet for.
Okay, so it's essentially kind of like the room kind of splits,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
The two people and so now there's a knife in the middle of the table with a bunch of gold piled around it.
Mm-hmm.
The two people on either end of the table have one of their hands tied to their waist, and then they have their offhand free. And then they have a pouch tied to the other end of their waist. Okay? The goal of you can win Knivesies one of three ways. You can be the last person standing on the table.
Okay.
You could be the person who collects the most gold by the time the game ends.
Okay.
Or you could be the last person alive.
Oh, yes. Now we're playing D&D.
So those are the three ways to win. The ways the game ends are if someone falls off the table, if somebody dies, or if all the coins are either picked up or a single coin leaves the table. The game's done. Game's over.
Oh, okay. So so say that last part again. If a coin falls off the table, the game's done?
If a coin falls off the table, game's over.
Okay.
So at that point, whoever has the most coins in their pouch wins.
Gotcha.
So essentially, it ends up being a mad dash game where somebody, inevitably, one of the people just goes straight for the knife and tries to just stab the other person to death.
Yeah.
And the other person either tries to knock the other dude off or just grab a bunch of coins. And so we all played. I was the only one who lost because I forgot that I had telekinetic and could shove with a bonus action, which was my plan. But for some reason, I was thinking it took an action. So for the first round, my plan was to stand there and just steady myself, have my telekinetic mage hand, grab a bunch of gold and put it in my pouch, and then shove the guy off the other side of the table. Or just swipe coins off the table. Either one, really. But I didn't get the chance to do either because by the time I had finished shoving the coins in my pocket, the guy reached down, grabbed the knife, and came after me. And in trying to dodge out of the way of the knife, I lost my balance and fell off the table.
Oh, no. Oh, dude. So did each of you, like each one of the members had their moment on the table, or did you guys pick?
Yeah, all of us had one. All of us fought one.
Oh, that's actually kind of cool. So essentially
we didn't have to, but we all decided,
okay.
Yeah, why not? Because the point was to just like entertain him for a while so that he's willing to do this deal. So we were like, yeah, why not? Let's just all do it.
Gotcha. Okay. That's a fun game. Also,
it was cool.
Had
It was pretty fun.
Stuff on the line. Could be doing
yeah,
some
and it was
death
fun
saves.
because at first you just think, oh, I'll just shove the guy off. But it's like, actually, there's a lot at stake. Because if you shove somebody off and you fail to shove them, you also have to make a check to make sure you don't overexert and like trip off the table.
Right.
Because if they just step out of your way, then you're going to go flying off the table. So
right. I imagine that's a lot of checks because you're
there's also we ended up betting like way more money than people normally do. We were like, 200 gold on our guy, and everybody was like, what? Normally it's like 20 gold
like
is about
gold?
the max you would ever bet.
The classic D&D thing where people are like, how much for a beer? Oh, that's like 5 copper. Okay, here's a gold.
Yeah, so instead of there being a pile that's this big of gold around the knife, instead there was a pile this big piled around the knife. So what Dip was doing was like, if you cross the threshold of the middle, you got to make a check to see if you knock any of those coins off because there's so many coins on the table. So that was fun. So we did that.
Oh, that's cool.
We entertained him. He took our bribe and came back to us with some letters that he had from the guy, where the guy was apparently in the midst of an affair. Essentially, he is not in a relationship, but he is flirting with and having relations with a woman who is in a relationship, and she's like a higher up in the city. So that was our dirt.
Okay.
So we took the letters back. That went great. Took those back to the guard captain. She was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what we need. We'll start dealing with this. You guys, thanks again. Here's your reward, all that kind of stuff. And then we had more downtime. Yeah, so then we had 7 more days of downtime.
Interesting. So a lot of downtime. Interesting.
Yes. Like almost a week it's been like between each session. But that's cool because that also allows for a lot of good like role play and just being able to like set ourselves up, and it also allows for a lot of like, how do you want to affect this situation that's going on? Are you just gonna wait it out? Are you gonna go out and try and help the guards at sometimes? Are you gonna just
I feel like you could almost start thinking of your how you want to guys fit in the party as well. Like how does the party want to work together? Do we just kind of sit and wait till the guard calls us, or do we want to go do so? I don't know. That's kind of cool and fun. I imagine every party would probably play that differently.
Yeah, and so this is where it gets a little juicy. Okay, so this is kind of what I wanted to get to.
We're getting to the juice.
At the end of our dealing with the King of Spiders, he recognized Cal just from being around. Like he knew I used to hang out around there and stuff. He recognized my face. So he talked a bit about like recognizing me and this kind of stuff. And I was the one doing the dealings with him because I've got a decent charisma and I've been there before. So I kind of knew what to expect.
Okay.
And so at the end of it, he was like, here's your letters. Thanks for entertaining me. As an extra gift, here's a bit of Shiver. And Shiver is a drug that is very commonly taken in Korvosa. Not by like everyone, but it's like the thing there.
Yeah.
And basically it's kind of like a hallucinogenic. You basically take it and then you kind of fall asleep and then you have like these amazing dreams.
Okay. So basically
and they call it Shiver because like you're having these amazing dreams. So in your sleep you're like shaking and convulsing because you're like dreaming so aggressively.
Basically making your dreams better than reality type of thing.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So
he hands it to me, like straight to me, so nobody can get between it, nobody can do anything about it. He goes, okay, cool, thanks. Plops it in his bag. But everyone sees it. It's not like
he? Yeah, I was gonna say, did he mention like also here Shiver, or was it just part of the reward that?
No,
he just
so like everyone
you?
saw it. Like he did it separately to me because he knows who I am, and he knows what I'm about, or at least used to be about. So now it's starting to come out, and I can start saying this now that Cal was heavily addicted to this stuff. Before the campaign.
Yeah.
And he's been out for 6 months because he was recovering from an overdose, which his sister basically got him out of. She came back to find him basically overdosing in a gutter, nursed him back to health, and basically has been trying to rehabilitate him for the last like 6 months.
Oh, dear.
And has been doing really well. And this is his first time he's been able to physically get in contact with the substance again.
Oh, no.
And so her first instinct is like, she's watching me like a hawk the whole time we're heading back home. She's staring at me. She's like, as soon as we get home, I'm taking that from you, basically is what she's thinking, right? And so what Cal does... And I'm going to explain this. Cal's reasoning here is, I need the opportunity to fail. Because if I don't have that opportunity, I can't succeed.
Okay.
Right? I need the opportunity to overcome it.
Uh-huh.
So he keeps it.
I need to stop relying on my sister to do this for me.
Yeah. If I don't ever have the opportunity to even fail in the first place, I'll never know if I'm actually over it. So what he does is he keeps it, and as they're walking, I rolled a sleight of hand check that wildly succeeded. He pulls out a potion bottle. This is how like important this is to him. He pulls out a potion bottle and dumps it. Okay. And puts the Shiver into the potion bottle and recorks it and puts it in his component pouch.
Okay. Okay.
And then just tosses the bottle to the
I was
side.
going to say, can you imagine if someone, it's like, oh no, Kurtis is dying or Cal's dying. We need to go give him a potion.
yeah, right? But like his goal with that
I know it
was
probably
like,
looks way different, but...
one, it's not the bottle she's looking for, so hopefully that helps. And two, like it's in his component pouch. That's on his person almost at all times, except for like when he sleeps, basically.
Yeah.
So over the downtime, he hadn't taken it yet. I was still wrestling with that. I had made like a couple rolls about like whether he would actually get over it or not.
Okay.
And he comes home one of these nights and goes to look for it to make sure it's still there, and it's not still there. And so him and his sister get in a huge argument because he's like, okay, look, I understand you're trying to help, but don't go behind my back. Like, you didn't even mention it. You didn't even say anything about it. Like, talk to me about it. If you're worried about it, ask me if I even kept it. You didn't know if I actually kept it. You just went and looked for it while I wasn't home. Like, you just went behind my back. So he got really mad. And so his whole thing was like, you got to give me a chance to actually fail. Because if I never have that chance, I'll never actually get over it. Because as soon as I'm in contact with it again, all I'm going to be thinking about is that. You know, I'm never going to have the chance to get over the stuff and be away from it.
Yeah.
That's his reasoning. And also his whole thing is like, he's very much a personal choice thing. He's like, if I want to get back into it again and ruin my life again, it should be my choice to ruin my own life, right? Like,
okay,
that's his side, is what he's thinking. Like, I appreciate you nursing me back to health. I appreciate you trying to help me, and I love you. And I'm not like hating you or anything, but don't go behind my back. Don't make decisions for me. Let me make them.
Okay.
Let me make my own mistakes. Is his kind of thing.
Yeah.
So they get in a big spat, and she's like, "Fine, here you go," and she gives it back to him.
Okay. I was gonna say, now what was her argument? What was Katie Kat, I think was her character's name?
Kit.
Kit, that was it. What was
Kitty.
Kit's kind of reasoning there? Was it kind of like she's trying to be the older sibling here? Like, I saw you dying.
I think her thing is that, you know, for her, she's like, no, you should just avoid it forever. Just never, like, if you never have to worry about it, then you never have to worry about it, right? Like, I'm trying to keep it away from you so that you never even need to have the temptation. Because to her, that's like the best way. Is just like, I can just watch your back. Because this has already actually happened once before. I think I talked about it here when they killed Gadrin. He had a case of Shiver like in his place, and Kit found it, but immediately started grabbing them all up and uncorking them and like pouring them out, so that Cal never even had the chance to be tempted.
Yeah.
And again, they got in an argument about that because he was just like, "Look, I just like I should deserve the opportunity to fail. Like, at least give me that. Like, don't just take things out from under me." And his biggest thing was just her going behind his back.
Yeah.
If she wanted to come home and yell at him for keeping it, that's fine. Let's talk it out. Let's figure it out. But don't steal it out from under me. And he was like, the only reason I felt like I need to hide it is because I knew that's what you were going to do.
Yeah. It's a level of trust, it seems like, because it's like Kit was kind of like, I can't trust him to make these decisions, so I'm going to be making them for him. And Cal's kind of reasoning is like, hey, before I messed up, you saved me. But trust me that I've learned my lesson at this point. Or at least talk to me about this issue.
Yeah, or at least know that, like, if I do make the mistake again, you're still here. And we can come back from that too. Like, but I need, if I don't have the opportunity to grow and the opportunity to make the mistake, then I'll never have success. You know?
Yeah. That's interesting, and that's what's so cool about D&D too, is that these opportunities with role plays like this is like these decisions and these choices and these arguments. That's what's really fun about this game. It's like these are characters that we literally made up in our head, but it's like it feels real, and it's like, it's just good storytelling. That's really cool.
Oh, also, like, the first way this actually got out was Cal was talking to Alora, who is played by my wife, obviously.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before, but was talking to Alora, basically trying to hit on her. Invited her back to like their place, and they were all both up on the roof under the stars, and it was really nice.
There you go.
And then so she started asking him, like, how did Gadrin know you, and also how did this other guy know you, and what do they mean by you've spent money there before, and all this kind of stuff. And he was like, yes, I mean, I took drugs a while back. It's no big deal. Like, kind of the thing. And so they talked about it quite a bit. And then he started talking to her about her God, because he's never been like a religious type. So
Gotcha.
So
that's cool.
Cal and Alora had some really good roleplay too.
Cool. Well, that's our Valentine's Day.
Yeah, there you go.
Ending on that note. Cool. Oh, that's really cool. I love all this downtime too. And it's very different from our campaign because we've been we've been lots of traveling, but was really fun about the last episode, the last session that we did. We had a beach episode, and it was really fun, and I cannot wait.
A beach episode? Aren't you guys in like the frozen north?
Oh, just you wait, my dude. I will be talking about that next time on the Backyard Tabletop. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for listening to us ramble about our fun role-play moments and fun games that we play. I am Jake.
And I am Kurtis.
We will see you next time on the Backyard Tabletop.
Boy.